Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session organized by the Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka, jointly with the Royal Asiatic Society of Sri Lanka, Archaeological Society Sri Lanka, Institute of Environmental Professionals Sri Lanka, and Section C of Sri Lanka Association for Advancement of Science, SLAS. And I'm Dr. Samira Samarasekara, representing SLAS. We have selected an interesting topic for today's session, which will be moderated by Professor Banduni Atapattu at Faculty of Engineering, the Open University of Sri Lanka. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Engineer Mrs. Padra Kamaladasa, President of the Water Forum of IESL, to deliver a brief introduction to today's session. Thank you. Over to you, Madam.
I hope you can hear me, Dr. Samira.
Yes, we can hear you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all of you. I welcome all of you on behalf of the Water Forum of IESL and also the other organizations join hand with us to today's webinar on the topic, Who Owns the Rain? A Story from Our Past. This is the fourth webinar organized by jointly by our team this year with under the theme of ancient irrigation technology. So what we all need through this series, as we mentioned earlier also, is to share any recent research outcome with all of you who have interest on ancient technology. So Dr. Samira mentioned who joins us. I'm not going into detail. Again, repeating the details of the organization. So as the prime professional institutions in the country, we have a responsibility. We believe that we have to explore our past technological achievement in scientific manner, record and present it to the future generation. So this is our main aim. At the same time, we must be able to see what were the achievements of our other nations in respect of the technology achievements in parallel to our country achievements during the contemporary era, or were we alone? So these are the main areas what we are interested in. So then only we have sort of a concrete evidence to bring this message to the world and attract the attention of the scholars. So I warmly welcome Dr. Engineer Chandana Jayawardene, the speaker today, and the moderator of the session, Professor Banduni Atapattu. Dr. Chandana has a passion in collecting historical information over our heritage, and I'm sure he will share a lot of updated information with us. I welcome all of you who join live through the Zoom to listen to this eminent resource person. I kindly invite all of you to join the discussion after the presentation to make the webinar more fruitful. With this warm welcome, I wish a very fruitful evening today and a very successful event. Thank you very much, Dr. Samira. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam. Professor Banduni, you may start.
Thank you very much to all of you. Very good evening. And this is our another webinar, next webinar in our webinar series of ancient water heritage. And so today's speaker is Dr. Chandana Jayawardene, Engineer Dr. Chandana Jayawardene. So it's my great privilege and as well as honor to introduce Chandana to all of you. Engineer Dr. Chandana Jayawardene has graduated from University of Moratuwa in electrical engineering. He has acquired a master's degree in industrial engineering and Buddhist studies and PhD in social history of science and technology. He has been a practicing engineer for nearly 26 years and currently attached to the Department of Mathematics and Philosophy of Engineering to teach the students on philosophy of engineering in the Open University of Sri Lanka. So Chandana has his own passion, as mentioned to all of you earlier, and he is different person actually, because he has selected his studies on the science and technology in the Buddhist Atuatika. So we found that he's having a lot of vast knowledge in that subject area, as well as he's representing several associations, including Royal Aesthetic Society as a very active member. And so further giving more details of him, because you may find out who he see when during his presentation, as well as he has written several books, and still that he is writing a lot of books, and in this special subject, being as an electrical engineer for more than 25 years. Dr. Chandana Jayawardene, now it's time to deliver your presentation, and the forum is over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Banduni, for very generous introduction. Hope I am audible.
Yes.
Right, fine. So I will share my screen so that we can proceed with the presentation. Right, hope the screen is visible to everyone.
Yes.
So thank you again to Professor Banduni for the introduction, as well as to the Water Forum of the ISL for organizing this seminar, as well as for the rest of the organizations also who are collaborating with the Water Forum of ISL for this seminar. Actually, it's a great privilege to deliver this speech today, and also it's very comfortable to be among so many colleagues, even during this type of online presentation. So today the theme is Who Owns the Rain, a story from our past. So as we all know, water is not something static. It's rather a flow, like a water cycle, the natural phenomena we are understanding as water cycle. We are receiving the rain as a mode of the precipitation, and the rainwater thus received is subjected to the surface runoff as well as to the filtration and the percolation. And it may accumulate in the form of either green water or blue water, according to the standard discussion on the subject. And through the evaporation and transportation, water is again going to the or released to the atmosphere, where it is getting condensed, and again we are receiving rain as the mode of precipitation. So this is a cycle going for maybe uncountable past, and it will continue to the future as well. So when we are talking about who owns the rain, the problem today we are going to discuss and make our focus on is who owns the rain. It is rather than who owns the rain, it may be the ownership of the rain may not be claimed directly. It may be claimed to the systems we are developing, the structures we are developing to harness the rainwater, so that the individuals, organizations who are getting the controlling power over the rainwater may claim some form of ownership of the for the rain. So this is the basic framework I'm going to discuss or focus today. So who owns the rain? This problem is not going to be discussed in an isolated manner. It has to be in general to be placed among the perceptions and ideologies among the people, among the societies, among the cultures towards the rainwater, and then the practical manifestation of harnessing the rainwater adopted by different societies, and then the water systems and structures which are going to be which are depending on the practical manifestation of harnessing rainwater. So this is the sort of general framework I am going to discuss today, and discussing the controlling power of the rainwater. In the past century, so starting from maybe some around late 18th century, there were claims by different authorities who were very much contributing to the social and political theory, starting from Adam Smith, who stated that, who remarked that the state of the countries like Egypt and India took special care to provide irrigation facilities since its revenue was mainly from agricultural products. Then Karl Marx was noting as based on the power of the state over the small disconnected producing organisms in India was the regulation of the water supply. We know that Karl Marx was producing or theorizing its ascetic mode of production, AMP, where he was discussing about the Asian mode of practicing the irrigation, where he says that it is the regulation of water supply as a base of the power. Then comes Max Weber, who noted that irrigation as practiced in China and also in Egypt required the control of the rivers, which was prerequisite to a rational economy. And then comes Wittfogel with his hydraulic hypothesis, and as well as despotic rule of the societies, mentioning that forced labor and large bureaucracy of the ancient civilization contributing to the despotic rule associated with the hydraulic works of those civilizations. So these are some very, very filtered presentation of the perception and the perception towards the rainwater adopted by different societies as understood by these particular authorities who were very prominent in formulating the social and political theories in recent past. But in recent times, these type of interpretations have been discussed in more general terms, and to a certain extent they have been challenged even. For instance, Lucas Host was saying that at the beginning of the 20th century, various technology schools emerged, and according to these various technology schools, the way of water management was interpreted in different ways. Most of these technologies had in common firmly disciplined centralized management, open canal system, and manually or mechanically operated hydraulic structures for the regulation and measurement. So this is the way those British, Dutch, French, and American schools adopted the harnessing the rainwater. But Host is questioning this way of harnessing the water. The need for flow control might possibly be explained by vested interest of colonial powers to assure water supply for export crops, by engineering perceptions on efficiencies and the urge to control the nature as developed in the Industrial Revolution. So Host was trying to place the way these British, Dutch, French, and American schools on irrigation and in hydraulic technology in a broader perspective, saying that it was not universal like. It may be depending on these particular schools and the reasons for such interpretations and such presentations. And coming to the Asian societies, Stephen Lansing, who was researching on the Subak system in Bali irrigation, was saying that 19th century Dutch officials who conquered the Bali regions in 19th century found little evidence for centralized control over irrigation in Bali. But in the 20th century, the colonial administration did its best to create a hydraulic bureaucracy and argued that in so doing, they were merely restoring an ancient system that had fallen into decay. And this Bali system, or rather Subek system, engaged or rather practiced in Bali in ancient times, have been subjected to many technological as well as social studies. So Lansing is more or less addressing technology plus social aspects, but the ideological aspects have has also been addressed by some other parties, like Mahdi India, who says the foundation philosophy applied to the Subek system is namely three hita karana, where three means three, hita means happiness, and karana means cause. These three causes are first, there must be harmony between man and God. Second, harmony between man and his neighbors. And third, harmony between human and natural environment. So we can see the way the perception on rainwater is evolving and the changing according to the societies on which these studies are being done and the way such societies are looked at. Yes, this is the Dujiang system, irrigation system developed in China somewhere around 3rd century BCE, before Common Era. And their studies have been confirmed that this is not a man-controlled water flow. It is a man-made structure, definitely, but it's not a man-controlled water flow. But depending on the spill levels and depending on the flows of the Min River, the water flows to the diversion canals. And it is the basic design principle is based on the Taoist approach on the nature, that we know that China is very much influenced by two ideologies, like Confucius ideology as well as Taoism. And Taoism is very much concerned about the nature and going along with the nature rather than doing major modifications to the nature. So studies have mentioned that, or studies have indicated that this particular system, which have been designed and constructed somewhere around 3rd century BCE, was based on the Taoist way of looking at the nature. So these type of discussion are emerging in the hydraulic technologies, as well as the way such technologies are developing in different societies, and how the rainwater, or rather water we receive, we are receiving through rain, is seen by different cultures. So with that background, where are we as people who with the heritage of water heritage going back to thousands or rather maybe several millennia back to the history, and what's our position in this broader dialogue? So what we see today is a system modified during basically during Dutch, and then during British, as well as after the independence, the local authorities. So during these modifications, it was the colonial ideologies which took prominence and governed the designs, constructions, and operations. So there may be several local inputs, but still it's the irrigation, or rather hydraulic technologies schools developed in Europe, we were following. So these modifications were based on such knowledge and such experiences and such exposures. So obviously there were no dedicated sources to ascertain the original ideologies, a fact continuing to date. We are not having much sources on our ancient system. So anyone who is going to study it, or anyone who is going to modify it, is left without any, or without much sources on the original system. So Engineer Bhadra Kamaladas is very appropriately and very correctly highlighting this position with regard to our ancient system when she says that when the colonial rulers started exploring this complicated and comprehensive irrigation infrastructure in the mid-19th century, in order to review the system, there was neither written documents for them to refer, no locally accepted or developed directions or guidance for them to follow, except the scattered physical evidences. So based on such scattered physical evidences, they perceived some form of original system, and then they restored these scattered physical evidences in line with the way they interpreted it, and we are still to see that that's the original system or not. So how to if there were no evidences of the original system, and if there were only scattered physical evidences available, how we can proceed further. So what I am trying to do during today's presentation is developing a very model. There may be other models, but I am supposing a particular model, a simple model for harnessing the rainwater, which I think was in our past, and review primary sources for the general information, not specific information, but the general information regarding the operation of structural components, and then function of the overall system based on these the function of the individual components, then develop something on the overall system, and then situating the problem who owns the rain in broader perspectives, considering structures and systems and practical manifestation in harnessing the rainwater, and perceptions and ideologies. So this is the basic model I am going to discuss in the coming slides. Basically, there would be I am taking two scenarios. First scenario is diversions, where natural water streams are diverted using some form of a structure, and diverted water is directed towards a canal or interbasin canal, and from that canal the small tanks are fed, which are basically maybe village tanks or other type of small tanks, and from small tanks the fields are fed, and from fields and the small tanks the water is flowing to the tanks and the fields in the downstream, which as a combination which we identify as cascade systems. So this is one of the model. Or the other model I am taking is the storages, where the major tanks are considered. So instead of diversion here, there might be a major tank there, so that the rest of the components may be same as the first model. So this type of water flow will be discussed with some original observations made during the colonial times, which were relating to those scattered physical evidences. And then I am trying to come up with some kind of an overall function of the system. So diversions, regarding the diversions, Henry Ward notes in 1857, regarding the Alahara diversion, what he says is, at the first sight, it would appear that here the river naturally divides into two channels, the one being very much larger than the other. But the smaller branch was mouth of the Marsan Canal. Then Ward says that the smaller branch was the mouth of the Marsan Canal. And we were led to the conclusion that what now sees a smaller branch of the river artificial and was the excavated mouth of the canal. So where it is, so this description illustrates some kind of diversion, and after diverting, the canal is feeding some areas, and from the canal also there's another path, water path connecting that canal and the major river, or rather Ambanganga, where Alahara diversion is located. So that's what Ward and his team first identified as two channels, and then they identified it's not two channels, it is the mouth of the Alahara canal, and then that canal is again connected to the main Ambanganga. And there was another note made by Bro here regarding the availability diversion in Dadruya. And there are also the same scenario. An ancient anicut built across the Dadruya at availability diverted waters down channel on the right bank of the Dadruya over the Magal River. The canal, which was called the Ridibediala, started from a point about half a mile up the Talagalala. Investigation of the original survey plans reveals a branch of the ancient Ridibediala is connected to the Dadruya at a point downstream to the Anicut. Again, the canal is connected to the main Dadruya through a bypass path, right? So this is well illustrated in Minipe diversion, where the Mahaveli Ganga is flowing towards this way, and this point there's a small anicut, and it diverts the water towards a canal, and over there there's a spill over there. So whatever the excess water is getting into the Mahaveli Ganga, and the remaining water goes to the Minipe Ala over there. So this is the main arrangement which was discussed regarding the availability at the Dadruya and the Alahara at Ambanganga also in the previous two slides. So again, Angamadilla diversion according to Bro here, the same scenario. The Ambanganga is flowing like this, and there's a conversion or rather diversion canal from there towards the Paratama Samudra. And again, there's a spill over here. And over the spill, the excess water is again connected to the main Ambanganga. So it looks like this is some kind of a typology of the ancient diversions. Rather than getting water straight away to a canal, it is diverted to a canal, and that diverted water is again connected, or rather again released to the main water stream if the water is in excess. So discussing this particular arrangement, Fires in 1867 notes that works of this description means Fire was discussing about Wakkoy diversion, which was designed by or rather restored by the colonial authorities with sluice gates, and he says that works of this description have never, I believe, been constructed in Ceylon. So what Fire saying is what they are doing there was something different. Something different from what was there in the ancient times. Canals have been connected with rivers, but in most cases, the waters in the latter have been raised to the required level by dams, and the mouths and banks of the former have never been protected by regulating sluices. So rather than regulating sluices or regulating gates at the diverted point, it is the raising of the water level and diverting into a canal, and throughout when water flowing inside the canal, the water is getting the spills have been provided so that excess water could be released. So all these information are direct into a particular direction, which we will be discussing next in time to come. And this is, of course, so that's the diversion. And what happens to these canals? So after diversion, the water enters into the canals, and sometimes they are interbasin canals. And this Yodel interbasin canal, which is very known and very prominent in our irrigation literature. So there are, of course, so this is the bed of the Yodel which is not the Jayaganga, what is functioning today. This is the bed of the ancient, or rather, Yodel, which have been restored by the colonial authorities somewhere around late 80s, 1880 and 80, the late part of the 1880. So it is not used. Many parts of this ancient Yodel is not used by now, but you can see that this is the bed, and this is it is a single bunded canal, and at the right side this is the bund, and at the left side there's no such bund. Is the natural ground over there, and so this is the present view of the Yodel. And during the colonial times also, these the Yodel, they have been identified, and they have made the renovations, and throughout its course from Kalaweva to Kisaweva, it feeds many small tanks and village tanks throughout its course, and we can see that it is the left bank, it is releasing water throughout its course, not the right bank, because right bank is most probably the highlands. It is the left bank, which is the lowlands between the canal and the Kalawaya. So that entire region is provided with small tanks, and such tanks are fed through the Yodel. So when these canals are feeding the village tanks or small tanks, the observation was no sluices were provided at the intake of the ancient feeder canals to regulate the flow of water from the river. As a precaution against floods and the possible danger of the water rising too high for the safety of the bund, galvanas, or the natural spills, galvanas, were distributed along the canal to take off the overflow. They were very often established on natural rock formations. So this one of the note made by Brohier in his very famous ancient irrigation Ceylon. And most probably the Brohier is not recording his own observation and his own experiences. There are many experiences by Brohier, but in most of the cases, Brohier, in that particular 3 volumes, 3 parts, Brohier notes the records made by the people who were before him. So these were also the observations made by the authorities before Brohier. So it is from the canals to the tanks. It is at this point, it's the spills. It is mainly the spills which are feeding the village tanks, small tanks, and cascades thereon. So this is one of the such spill, obviously renovated, or rather obviously constructed during the colonial times during their renovation. But still we can see that this is a spill. There are no such gates as such, and this is the canal side, and over the spill is the feeding canals to the tanks. So throughout its course, these type of spills would have been there. So, regarding the small tanks, Leiching is saying that it's not in the vicinity of these large tanks, however, that as a rule any cultivation is carried on, but near the smaller and more manageable ones. So Leiching in 1869 notes that it is not the large tanks which are feeding the cultivation or fields directly. It's the small tanks which are feeding the cultivation. So these small tanks might be made smaller if it be possible to conduct the water from the large tank into the fields, which has been noted by T. Nagel in 1790, which is obvious during the Dutch time. So what Nagel says is, he also observes what Leiching observed in 1869, but he says that rather than continuing with small tanks, if the fields could be fed from the large tanks, then these small tanks could be avoided. So from the tanks, what happens? From the tanks, the way the water is released to the fields, okay, somewhere here, okay, from the tanks, the water is released to the fields. So it is said that sluices of small tanks, which is referred to as koddu, usually consists of wooden pipe running through the base of the bund nearly as far as the water in the tank. The end of the tank is tank side is inserted the vertical wooden pipe. This pipe is also closed at the top by a plug. So this is obviously a plug sluice associated with small tanks. And I was in 1890s notes that the whole single sluice was an earthenware made by the village quarters. The pipes are tapered in fit into each other and were laid in bund with slight slope towards the fields. According as the waterfalls, the people remove a pipe and regulate the flows as it may be required. So, so it may be either plug type sluice as mentioned by Snyder, or it may be either the Cata type, Catastrophe type sluice, where farmers are removing each unit, each Cata, when the water level comes down. So this type of construction has been followed. Okay, now okay. So this is the Catastrophe which have been noted by the maybe even late as 1970s and maybe late as 1960s and 1970s. But after, especially after the, I think the Mahaveli waters, instead of this type of Catastrophe, the modern sluices have been installed in the village tanks with this control gates and the controlling mechanisms. And the original, or rather the traditional type of sluices have been used by the colonial authorities as well, because they were having drawings and they were having experiments. There were several records regarding the experiments they were doing on this type of Catastrophe, how to optimize the material and how to get the maximum out of the Catastrophe. So they have been developing detailed drawings, and the experiments were done in PWD laboratories and factories, and they were repeating what they have seen in the village tanks. So after getting the water out from the tank through the either plug sluice or Catastrophe, it is diverted to several tracks like this. So this is from I was one manual of Diwani, and there he mentions that after leaving the water from the tank, it is coming to several tracks, or rather several canals like this, feeding several tracks. So there, of course, there should be some kind of an increment here, some kind of a mechanism here to divert water, or rather to distribute water among the canals. Before going into the other slide, next slide, I will highlight one point here. You may be able to see that there's a particular tract called Purulupaluwa in the ancient system of fields, the ancient system of dividing fields among the users. So it is Purulupaluwa over here as well as Purulupaluwa over there. Again, the second bunch of tracks also having a Purulupaluwa over here, and at the downstream again another Purulupaluwa. So in some literature, I have seen that Purulupaluwa has been illustrated, or rather has been presented in a different manner. So this is this may be something we have to note when we are considering about the ancient arrangement of tracks and the ownership of the tracks. So our focus is at this type of channels which are feeding the tracks along the fields, and they said that this is according to the Irrigation Ordinance number 45 in 1970. Even by that time, what they have done is when they are allocating the water proportions for the cultivators of several tracts of fields irrigated by the same principle, water course shall convene an assembly to determine the proportion of water to be allocated for each tract. And there they are putting some stones at on the same level, so that it is the level of these stones which determine the amount of water passing to the fields. And the quantity of water as determined upon shall on no accounts be increased at the will of the pleasure of the individual cultivators. Obviously, there should be some kind of an authoritative manner to manage the water released to each channel and to each tract of the field. So this is the way it has been done, through providing the stones at the same level. Okay. So once the level is same, then we can change the width of the channel so that the amount of water passing to each channel could be differentiated. So this is the type of the arrangement which have been provided here. It is not stone actually, but in many parts of the country, this type of Karahan kote would have been available some around even around the 1960s, so that this is the width of the opening at the same level. So this width determines the amount of water passing to the each channel. So this type of distribution is not limited to Sri Lanka. It is very much prominent in Asian countries, including the maybe in Indonesian regions, and especially rather this Nepal, where this is the type of this proportional wire, we can say it, so that it is same level but with different widths, so that the water could be manipulated to each channel. So after passing that, after releasing the water to the channels, those channels feed the fields, and from field to field also there's a way of conveying water, and we are saying it wakkada. So upper tracts are having wakkada, so that once the water is used on the upper tracts, then water can be conveyed to the tracts at the downstream through these type of wakkada. So right, okay. So this type of water contribution, basically there may be few salient points we can identify. First one is the lack of control gates. The second one is the flow is always the surface water. Okay. So these two basic features could be identified once we know this traditional law, our ancient way of water conveyance from the diversions up to the field level. So once comes to the major tanks. Okay, so major tanks also releases water to the canals through sluices, and this is there are several types of sluices we can see in the ancient large scale tanks. This is Soroboro, which is having a natural sluice between two natural rocks, and this is the natural sluice at Erupotana at Vavuniya district, somewhere around Vavuniya, and those are the natural sluices. Another type of sluice is a tunnel sluice, which we can find out at Madhuroya. So obviously, this should be rather than a man-made bund. This part of the bund might have been a natural reach through which there would have been a tunnel made, and it was the tunnel. It was through the tunnel the water was conveyed to the canal through this type of arrangement. So, and so this is the tunnel type sluice what we can see at Madhuraya, and there are Bisokoto type sluices where of course there are very few Bisokotos, maybe 2 or 3 Bisokotos, which may be in identifiable status. Many of Bisokotos have been modified during the colonial eras as well as thereafter, so that their basic features could not be identified by referring to those type of tanks. But this is right bank canal Bisokotua at Kudavilachia, and this is the left bank canal Bisokoto sluice again at Kudavilachia, and this is the Bisokoto sluice at Buava at Polonnaru. So again, in these Bisokoto sluices also, and obviously these natural sluices as well as the tunnel site sluices and the Bisokoto sluices, we not be able to find any controlling mechanisms. Okay, so rather than, of course, the very famous this valve pit theory provided by, or rather valve pit identification forwarded by Parker has been discussed some of the previous papers, and rather than controlling flow, it would have been the way of conveying water from the tank to the canal through the Bisokotua where it is applicable, and through the natural sluices where such natural formations are formed, and through the tunnel type sluices where the natural ridges are used at the places where the water is released to the canals. So rather than a controlling mechanism, that's the way, or rather that's the way the water would have been handled through the sluices. And this is obviously a outward sluice barrel at the ancient Rabakan site, which indicates the fact that before constructing the bund, our ancient builders, tank builders, would have been very much concerned about the level of the sluice as well as the site of the canal, the canal. And after constructing the sluice, it would have been the bund would have been constructed so that the land topologies could be manipulated by using the best location for the canals. So once accumulating what we have discussed so far is there were natural water streams from which the canals were fed through Vaso spills. So we are taking water from top of the natural water streams without controlling mechanisms over there, and from canals to small tanks, it is again the surface water we are tapping without controlling mechanisms, and from small tanks to distribution canals, there's a control mechanism, because of course the fields should be provided with some kind of a controlled flow, otherwise the availability of water may disturb the way the people are cultivating the cultivating paddy. So there was controlling rather sort of controlling mechanism there, either through plug type sluices or kata type sluices, so maybe Hartley type or multi type sluices. Different names may be there, but still the function is same. Taking the water out from the small scale tanks. It is again the surface water, and from distribution canals to the fields. Again, the proportional layers what we identified as Karahan Kota, and from fields to the fields at the downstream. It is the Wakkada, again the surface water flowing without much of control once it's getting filled. So the path, the water path, conveying path from these natural water streams up to the fields and the fields at downstream. Once the water gets filled into a certain level, it passes to the next level. At the next level, the water gets filled to a certain level, it passes to the next level. So this is something basic feature we can identify by considering the physical evidences as well as the first-hand observations made by the colonial authorities when they were recording what they have seen in our system. So this is the natural water streams through canals to the fields, and this is the natural water through major tanks to the fields. Again, these sluices over there, either natural type sluices or tunnel type sluices or Visakoto type sluices. The same principle was there. When the water comes to a certain level, it flows to the canals so that it conveyed to the tank and the cascade systems at the downstreams. So with that, I think we are in a position to discuss our original problem. Who owns the rain? So I am starting from the bottom. So water systems and structures. When we are considering the water systems and structures, the flow control is only at the user level, at the small tanks, which means the natural and there of course the natural surface flow is considered and manipulated, and the surface water flow through the system, which ensures the enhanced downflow, because once the surface water is flowing, there's a water accumulation, so that the groundwater level could be enhanced, and flow is governed by the level of the water, so that the natural phenomena beyond the human control and acceptable to the users. So once the water gets to a certain level, it flows. So that's the natural way of behaving. The water behaves, which means no one is there to control it. Okay, and the users also identify, and the users also have to accept that fact. If the water is there, then they will receive the water. So this is the water systems and structures what I accumulated from the discussion so far, and practical manifestation of harnessing the rainwater. A man-made system mimicking the surface runoff. So this particular system is rather mimicking the surface runoff. This is the same thing what happens if we use the rainwater without any structure. We are using the structure, we were having the structures and we were designing and constructing structures, but still the main basic principle was just mimicking the surface runoff. And rather than an irrigation system, in strict sense, a system aimed at enhancing the availability of water in time and space. In time, it stores to a certain extent, and in space, it gives water which was not available during the natural rain. So this aspect has already been discussed by several authorities before, especially I think Engineer Diallo Mendis was questioning whether it is exactly the irrigation system. Actually, there were so much literature written on this water soil ecosystem, started or rather pioneered by Engineer Diallo Mendis and then by several others. And so these are the features of this ancient system, as I understand. And perception and ideology. So all these practical manifestations and water system and structures are not coming in a vacuum. There should be some kind of a perception and ideologies behind such manipulations. So it may be the addressing the holistic needs of the plants, animals, and humans. It's not only the humans. It is the entire nature which has been addressed. So with that, the water is, so who owns the rain? No one knows the rain. Okay, no one knows the rain. It's still a natural phenomena. It has been used. I can see the. Okay, no one knows the rain, but it's a natural phenomena. What our ancient system would have done is to use that natural phenomena to cater the entire nature, including humans, animals, as well as plants. So this particular aspect have been addressed in some of the ancient or rather medieval literature as such as well. For instance, if we take this, there's a pillar inscription at the way we go to the Alahara canal, Alahara diversion site, where it is said that it is one side of it is written in the Sanskrit, and the translation of this Sanskrit part is by Sri Parakrambahu. Actually, the canal was constructed during the Mahasen's time, but there would have been some renovations made by Parakrambahu during the Polonnaru era. And by Sri Parakrambahu, the Supreme Lord of Lanka, who has engaged himself in enterprises for the benefit on the whole world, Vishwa Lokartha, has this been caused to be made. So this particular irrigation project, if we can say it's irrigation project, that project has been attended by King Parakrambahu for the benefit of the whole world. It's not the humans which have been discussed or rather aimed at. And again, this very famous notation by King Parakrambahu again, this Mahavansa notation goes like Appakampi dise dese salilang utti sambhavang vinaloka para lokopakarena jatu maganchi sagaran, which has been translated as truly in such a country, not even a little water that comes from the rain must flow into the sea without being made useful to man. So actually, this translation by Geiger is not addressing this particular phenomena of lokopakarena. It is for the lokopakarena, not for the made useful to man. And this particular translation done by someone else, again taken by Brohier in his very famous work I have cited before. In such a country, let not even a small quantity of water obtained by rain go to the sea without benefiting man. So we can see that Geiger as well as Brohier is concentrating on, or rather focusing on man. They were thinking that these irrigation works done by ancient in our ancient times were for the man. It is not for the man, or rather man's enterprises. It is for the nature. It is lokopakarena, Vishwa Loka. So this is the entire scenario I would like to share with you. And there may be some thing we can enclose entire discussion into a few lines, which may go in a very famous stanza, which are preaching day by day, morning and night, which goes like Devasutu Kalena Sampath Hetucha Ito Bautu Lokocha Raja Bautu Dhammiko. So Devasutu Kalena, so it's natural phenomena, but still it is for the benefit of the entire world. It is the Loka which is going to be benefited and which is going to be happy about, prosperous about this, or rather the way we are using this, the Varsha or or the rain. So this may be the some kind. So this may be the ideological perspective of our ancient system. If we want to find one, this may be something regarding the ideological framework of our ancient system. So that's the end of the presentation, and there were some references made during the study. And with that, I will conclude the presentation. And once again, I would like to convey my gratitude and thanks to the Water Forum of the ISL and the SAS Section C and the Royal Aesthetic Society of Sri Lanka, Archaeological Society, and the Institute of Environment Professional Sri Lanka, who are gathering with us today. And thank you very much for this opportunity, and hope you might have enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Chandana Jayawardene, thank you very much for
Yes.
your informative and very interesting presentation. And we heard a lot that what we haven't listened before. And so the participants that we now focusing into the very fruitful discussion, and it's with you actually, because that we expect your questions to type in the chat area, or otherwise that you can raise hand. I think IESL is now allow the people to unmute that who are going to raise their hands. And with that, shall we move into the question and answer session and also the discussion to make this fruitful? As my question, that I'd like to put a question to Dr. Jayawardene, that I'm curious of that the picture that you have shown in the flyer. So what is it, and would you please give the explanation on it first of all before going to the discussion?
Right. Okay. It is a mural painting taken from the cave number, if I remember correct, cave number either 3 or 4 of the Dambulla, Rangiri Dambulu Vihara, and it depicts the Anotattavila. Okay, so Anotattavila is very much related with our way of thinking, and it is considered as something supreme and something sacred, and it's there's several what you call several stories related with Anotattavila. And the middle, what you see as a lotus-like thing is the Anotattavila, from where there are some rivers are flowing towards the cardinal directions like north, south, west, and east. So that's the picture what I have taken there.
Right. Okay. However, that I would see there are something that what is passing and there's line is going on. Is there any something that you can interpret?
Okay, I will.
Can you see that? I think I'm sharing it with all of you now.
Shall I stop my sharing?
Can you see it? I thought that you can see. Any participant? Can you see that my screen? Anybody? Chandana, can you see my screen?
I can't. What I see is mine. I think I have to. I have, yeah. Anyway, I will take mine.
No, madam, we cannot see the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so I think Professor Banduni is referring to this particular picture. Is this the one?
Sorry that I'm sharing my. Let's wait.
Oh.
We can't see your one.
Okay, I will stop my sharing.
Yes, this is the one. Yes, that exactly. That's what I'm.
Okay. Okay. So So this is the Anotattavila, and this is the Mahameru Parvata at the middle, and there are several parts, water parts, rivers going to the cardinal units directions, north, south, east and west maybe. And there are the Buddha figures as well as deities over there, as well as the natural phenomena, the natural plants and things like that, as well as the animals over there. So I think this is something. This depicts something holistic nature of the water. Okay, it is for the benefit of everyone, and it is again coupled with the Buddha as well as the deities. So this may be the way we are seeing at water. So that's how such mural painting would have been there, because no one has seen Anotattavila, no one has seen Mahameru. What they depict in a picture is what they gather from their folklore, gather from their thoughts, gather from their society, gather from their culture. So this, I thought this may be some kind of a depiction of our perception on the water. So that's why I included it here, as well as I was a bit insisting on including that particular figure in the fire as well.
Okay. Thank you. So there's one question to the chat area. The Weber, as we know, has no sluice gates. Does this confirm that Western technology is a failure like the Jayaganga? Hope that you have got the question.
Yes. Okay. Basically, it covers, I think, two areas. One thing is the Weber without sluice gates, the first thing. The second thing is the Jayaganga, the interbasin canal, which is a failure. I think Jayaganga, by Jayaganga, the participant who is raising the question may be referring to the Jayaganga constructed during the Mahavali project in maybe 1970s and 1980s. So failure in the sense, in my view, it is a failure. In my view, it's a failure because when we are talking about water or any type of a natural resource, we have to take the holistic picture. It is not the humans, it is not the plants, it's not the animals. It's the holistic picture we have to think about. What could be the effect on the plants and animals if we are catering the humans? What could be happening to the humans and the plants if we are focusing on the animals? So rather than such kind of tunnel vision, we have to take the entire thing in broader perspective and do our whatever designs or constructions or operations, whatever, in the addressing that holistic figure or holistic manner. So in that case, I think if we can implement. On the other hand, the problem is, in practical terms, I am not sure how far we can implement something on this, something what I have discussed during past 1 hour. Okay, depending on where we are today, it may be impossible, but at least as a perception level, I think that may serve the holistic picture in a more proper manner. That's my answer. I think that answers the question.
Now it's time for the participant. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand or check whether you can unmute and ask questions. I think ISL has allowed them to ask questions. ISL, have you, can they unmute by themselves? I'm not sure. Dr. Kumari Panand, that can you unmute by yourself? Yes, Dr. Yes, Shireen, that after a long time,
Yes.
Shireen Aminda, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Chandana, for a very interesting lecture. I have two concerns. One is I'm not an engineer. I'm only a humble architect and I don't do very much in that field either. But I have always thought of this Visoko tour not as a sluice nor as a control, but as a surge chamber, which relieves the pressure from the main tank before releasing it through the channels so that the turbulence can be taken up. That is how I see it. I'd like you to comment on that, please. And secondly, the painting, actually this, what I understood earlier as being from Danagirigala, refers to more, and it's a park and more with a bigger, actually the painting itself is of a bigger area and shows the, to some extent, the hydrologic cycle and also the distribution of water. That is how I understood it. Please, I'd like your comments on this.
Right, Shireen. Okay, thanks for commenting. First, the function of Visoko tour. Before concluding the function of Visoko tour, I think we have to go a very long journey, because one thing is we have to place the Visoko tour in the entire scene. It is not the tank, it is not the bund, it is not the canal. At least we have to take a particular maybe 2 or 3 basins consisting of tanks, consisting of Visoko tour, and do a analysis how, taking the hydrology even, how the water would have been utilized in that particular system, considering each part, the canal, the Visoko tour, the spill, the spills along the canal. So that has to be done. First thing. The second thing is this surge chamber and the pressure relief mechanism. There may be some other alternatives we have to think about, because if so, we know that inside the Visoko tour it is very, very, very smooth and very orderly mannered. Okay, so why our ancient engineers were making Visoko tour in such a orderly manner and very smooth surfaces? By providing some rough surfaces, there may be some better means of handling the turbulences or handling the pressure, the water pressure. Those things we have to consider about. Okay, so I am not able to. I am not able to say this is the function of the Visoko or something like that. Okay, and what I can say is we have to do a lot of studies before concluding what's the function of the Visoko tour. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the painting at Danagirigala. I think you are referring. No, you are not referring to the painting I have shown. No, you are referring to another painting. No, I think
same one.
Because I have taken this this particular plate from the that the CCF's published series of temple paintings.
Yes.
Okay, they are under the Dambulla. It is mentioned this particular painting. So I took this particular painting from that series, that particular book under the Dambulla in that particular series. So I am not very much aware how this Danagirigala. Actually, if you have physically seen it at Danagirigala, then it should be it should be very interesting fact. And because I took it from that particular book, so that's I am taking it as coming from Rangiridambulu Vihara.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much for the comments and thank you for the lecture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Architect Mrs. Sherry Namendra. Mr. Sylvie Pereira, that it's your turn now.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's a very invigorating lecture, and thank you. First of all, thank you very much for it. My question is, the Mississippi River Authority has constructed a number of dams across on the river at various places to control the flooding and the river, control the river flow. But the Mahaveli Authority schemes does not cater to that. What do you think about that?
Mahaveli Authority in the sense, in the recent designs, you mean?
Yes, recent designs. There's only one dam there. I mean,
I'm afraid that I am not a very authoritative person to comment on that point, Mr. Pereira, because my area is not the irrigation. So I am concerned about the way our ancient projects would have been designed and be constructed, and the ideologies and perceptions behind such designs and the constructions. In recent times, I am not very much sure about what are the developments taking place at the other part of the world, as well as the design principles behind the design principles behind our projects. What I am my personal view is in this having sluices on the tanks and the Jayaganga scheme are failures because they are not addressing the holistic view. That's what I mentioned in the previous comment. Also, regarding your point, I am not very much competent enough to address the point. Sorry for that.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That anybody else that who is willing to ask some questions? Or anybody who can answer for that particular question is from irrigation department, that who can answer the question? Right. Okay. My question is, Chandana, Chandana, now I know that you have done a lot of work with the Ranmasuyana. So would you please talk about something Ranmasuyana and to us related to that the particular topic?
Okay. Okay. In a brief, what I can say is Ranmasuyana has been identified as a unique garden system. Unique garden system going along with the Sigiriya and this what you call just at the adjacent site of the Mihintalaya, Kaludipakuna. So these are garden sites, and there are some salient features identified that Ranmasuyana, because one thing is it has been identified as a pressure garden, but of course now they are surfacing that there are some other elements which could not be assigned to a pleasure garden. Most of the cases, this monastic usage of the building sites as well as the ponds as well as this water distribution network. So it's a very interesting site consisting of series of ponds and water conveying network, as well as some unique building features. And the study may be very extensive to cover all these aspects. And I think there should be some I think to discuss the matter in this forum, Professor Banduni may not serve the it is not justifiable. That's right.
Okay,
It's not justifiable.
right, okay,
Anyway, one point I need to highlight is there would be another public webinar on Ranmasuyana arranged by the National Trust some around the 25th of November. So welcome you all there also, where I am concentrating on the Ranmasuyana as the focus point.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. And now it's the time for participants. Now, that's another question in the chat area by Mr. Mahinda Ratnapriya. He's asking that I noticed that recently single bank Minipay Yodel has been transformed to a double bank canal by constructing gabion walls on the side of the water spread. What is your idea about this modern deviation?
Yes, Engineer Mahinda Panapiti. Thank you for comment.
Mahinda Panapiti, sorry.
Mahinda Panapiti, yes. Thank you for comment, Mahinda. Regarding so there's a basic principle behind the single bundled contour canals is, I think, they are not fed from the rather than feeding from the rather than being fed from the bank at an end, they are collecting entire drainage over its course. So that drainage is collected in these canals, especially this whatever it may be, Yodel connecting Tisava and Kala, or maybe Alahara, or maybe the Minipayala you are talking about. So it collects the entire drainage from the uphills throughout its course, and it distributes the collection to the downward cascades through the spills in many of the time. So this is a very, I think this is a very beautiful and very practical scenario where the entire water drainage could be collected and could be distributed. So actually, I was referring your article in the economic view in many of the cases where you are referring to this interbasin canals as rather than canals, they are elongated tanks, which is very true according to my view also. So I think that type of modifications using converting single bundled contour canals to the double bundled, either maybe rather contour canals, they may be some modifications in the course as well. So it is not, I think, what we should do like, but still there may be practical issues with these type of modifications, which I am not exposed to and I am not familiar with, so that I am not touching those areas which are beyond my understanding and my specialty. But the beauty of the single bundled contour canals, as we discussed during the past hour, is something very relevant to, I think, Sri Lanka scenarios, especially with the thousands of cascades. especially with the thousands and thousands of cascades which are fed from these type of canals. So I think it's better if we can continue that practice. But still, I have to say that the practical issues I'm not sure about.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Mahinda, you got the answer from Dr. Chandana. Dr. Chandana, there's another question from Nehansa Palpita, and he's asking that, can you briefly differentiate between the present and ancient irrigation systems, ideologies, the pros and cons? A little difficult questions to answer because there are many. I don't know, it's your own opinion you can provide, Dr. Chandana.
Yes, in point wise, may I say something like this? It's okay. This now it is the if you take some, I have mentioned that the three salient features, the control flows. Okay, so in ancient times, the controlling point may be at the user end, but now of course the controlling points are from the very beginning, from the major tanks, either from the major tanks or either from the diversion headworks. Controlling points are there. So this is in ancient system, there were no such controlling points, but now there are controlling points, flow controlling points. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think in the ancient case, it's the surface flow which is flowing from stage to stage. But now, of course, it is not the surface flow. The water is tapped at the middle or the bottom of the either storage or either tanks or either in canals. So it is the surface flow versus the middle or bottom flow. Surface flow in ancient times and the middle or bottom flow in the modern times. That's the second point. The third point is, in the ancient times, the flow is controlled by the level, which is obvious to everyone. And I mean, there may be less arguments regarding the water distribution scheduling, rather, if we forget about scheduling, the water distribution scenario, there may be less arguments between the people who are maintaining the system and people who are using the system, because it is the level which determine the distribution. But now, of course, I think it's not the level, but the volume rate, maybe cubic or something. So that's the third difference I am seeing. So these are the very briefly and very, very condensed way. These may be the points I can highlight.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chandana. Now, it's from me actually that earlier you mentioned from several sloka mentioned that the lokopakare, that the water should have to allocate for the lokopakare. So in here, but in the same translation is going as used by a man, right? Right. That's the way that you have identified. Yes. So lokopakare means, does that mean the man used for the man or something different? For my opinion, it's for the everybody, birds or the animals, right. Whatever.
That's right. That's right.
But
exactly.
The particular two people, like a bro here and the other one you mentioned.
Yes. It is the Geiger somewhere around early 20th century and mid 20th century. It is the actually I took these two claims, or rather these two translations, because of the relevance to the presentation today, because Geiger was the one who translated Chula, the Mahavansa, which covers this era of the Paratnamabahu in the very broader manner. There might have been previous translations, but it is the Geiger's translation many of us are referring to, many of people are referring to. So Geiger translates lokopakara as the benefit of the man, and Brohier also. Brohier is very much quoted about the irrigation in ancient Sri Lanka. So Rohia also takes this Lokopakara. Actually, he is taking someone else's translation, but that translation again uses Lokopakara as the benefit of the man, which has been used by the Rohia. So I think there are a few issues here. One thing is, what's the exact English term? Because these are translations now. So what's the exact term which can elaborate the meaning of Lokopakara? In Sinhala, it is Lokopakara. We can have some kind of idea. We know it's not addressing only the humans. Okay, at least we can have some kind of idea. It is local. It is the nature we have to address. So in English, what's the term we can use instead of Sinhala or Pali or Sanskrit Lokopakara? So these translators may come up, or rather, they might have understood this particular word in their perspectives, because they are seeing things to be used by the man, something like that. So they translate the Oriental texts also in line with that perspective. So the translation is wrong. The translation is wrong, and that translation was wrongly done because there were no proper terms to elaborate the concept of Lokopakara. One thing. Second thing is the worldview. These the people who did these translations, the worldview they had about the use of the water. So because of these two reasons, I think this Lokopakara might have been translated in that manner. But in Sinhala versions, I was today afternoon, I was referring to this Sinhala translation of the Mahavansa made by Veerasekara. They are saying it's Lokopakara. But unfortunately, I have seen that I have seen that now, of course, even the Sinhala papers are translating this particular Pali version as the benefit of the man, like Minisage Yahapataka මොකද දිය බිඳුවක්වත් අපතේ නිසාගේ යහපතක පාවිච්චි නොකර දිය බිඳුවක්වත් අපතේ නොඅරිද්ද ඕනයි කියන එක. So these type of particular, I mean, they may be very, I mean, it is only single word, but that word addresses a huge picture, something like that, the way I see it. Yes, as you said, it is the Lokopakara in the Pali as well as in the Sanskrit texts, but in translating to English, it occurred as for the benefit of the man. It might have occurred because of those two reasons I have pointed out.
Yes, thank you very much. So in that case, here Dr. Ashley is saying that for all beings, that Lokopakara is for all beings, that there are low berms built across low points in the jungles to collect water for the forests and the animals. So Dr. Ashley, do you like to raise your voice, please? That if you raise your hand, then we can unmute you. Or he's here, but I think that he cannot unmute probably. IESL, that can you make him unmute? Then he can join.
Okay, now it's okay. Like, now it's
yes,
okay.
Please. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Ashley. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Chandana. Thank you very much. Well, actually, I think the translation is for all beings, not for man. That is anything, because if you look at the early translations of even this sort of Arat Mahinda and Devanampieta's discussions, they were talking about not only for man, but for the animals, for the fish, for the, everything was included. No? So I would imagine that this should be translated as for all beings, that is everybody. And the reference that I also made was that walking through some of the jungles, I have come across low points, that is little valleys with berms across, That is, in other words, just to collect the water in the jungle. In other words, it will have overflown at some point, but at some point, water was used to percolate into the ground, right? That was for the forest, also for the animals to drink, and so on. So this whole thing is a holistic, as you said, it's a very holistic thing. It's not a sort of a thing that is ideally for one individual of one type of person, but the ancients looked at this whole system as a holistic thing, where everybody was brought into it. It helped everybody, and so on and so forth. And then man also, if you notice, he was not greedy to take all the water. No? He only used it for what he could have used. That's all, So this, I think this holistic nature was something that was very prominent in the past, which we are losing,
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes, thank you very much for the comment, Mr. Ashley. Actually, yes, all beings may be very appropriate term. All beings, yes, it should be Siolu Satyo, like which includes the animals, plants, as well, humans, maybe even. I think for if we take this Buddhist perspectives, it is not something alien because සියලු සත්‍යෝ කිව්වහම අපිට ඒක නොහුරු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි මම හිතන්නේ. It is not something alien. So all beings may be a better word, but even now I think these particular words are not properly translated, even in the recent writings. Also, it is unfortunate. Thank you very much for the comment, Mr. Ash.
Thank you very much. I think that the comment is given by Professor Mohan Kumaraswamy, if I am correct. Professor Kumaraswamy, that can you unmute and?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I just posted the comment to supplement what Chandana said, because he did mention that there might have been previous translations of the Mahavansa. So I remembered that there was actually, what I read was it was translated by Turner, George Turner. So I just did a quick search now, and what I found on Wikipedia I put there. So both are correct. I mean, it was first translated by Turner, but then later the German translation was done by Geiger.
Yes.
And then it was translated in English by ladies, and then translated back or corrected by Geiger. So just for completeness, I just supplemented what Chandana said. It's for the information of the others. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And in the same time, Professor, it is interesting to check what's the term Geiger has used in the original translation in German.
Yes.
Yeah, because these things illustrate some points we have to think about. I think how different people, how different societies seeing at things like. So it's thank you very much for the comment, Professor. And it is interesting to note, or rather to investigate what's included in the original German translation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. And there's another question from Sanjeeva Jessingha, that actually is asking about the North Central Canal project, specifically focusing on Morakan, the canal, the waterway to convey water from Morakan reservoir via aqueducts, tunnels. And Chandra, you can read that question, but I'm not sure since you are not a specific who is that the irrigation engineer, but he's asking your view regarding this particular canal.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I think it is the same story, like, because we were talking about this importance of holistic approach, and how far we can included this holistic approach into the engineering products at the end of the day. So I think this particular canal engineer Sanjeev is referring to is having major part of it as tunnels, concrete laid tunnels, and maybe even the concrete laid canals. And in the other hand, not only this particular project, there are so many projects in recent times. The entire tunnel is laid with concrete, and it is, it is something very much different to our single bundled ancient Yodel arrangement. So the same principle, it is whether we are addressing this holistic perspective, whether we are addressing the benefit of the all beings. So as far as we are deviating from that particular aspect, we are deviating from our past, and maybe we are deviating from, actually, not maybe, we are deviating from the correct use of water, as I see it.
Okay, thank you very much for your very active participation and to this discussion. And I think it's we took almost 45 minutes for this Q&A session, and so now it's a time. I hope that there are no more questions, and so it's time to deliver the official vote of thanks. Dr. Samira Samarasekara, that is representing the Section C of Sri Lanka Association for the Advancement of Science. May I invite you for the to deliver the vote of thanks. Actually, it was Mr. Atugala from IEPSL. He was planning to join with us, but due to heavy rain, again, we are talking about the who owns rain. So nowadays, you all know that we are owing rains, heavy rains from all over the country. So now it's a good time to wind up our session. And now, Dr. Samira Samarasekara, the forum is over to you for delivering the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, madam. And it gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for today's webinar. And first, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Chandana Jayawardene, who honored this webinar series with his presentation as well as inspirational thoughts. And I would like to thank Professor Bandhu Niyatapattu for moderating today's event, and Engineer Mrs. Bhadra Kamaladasa, Chairman of Water Forum, IESL, and then Dr. Laksiri, as well as I would like to thank Institute of Engineers and the Royal Asiatic Society, Archaeological Society of Sri Lanka, Institute of Mental Professionals Sri Lanka, and Section C of Sri Lanka Association for Advancement of Science. And I would like to thank once again to all active as well as other participants to present here, and thank you very much and have a pleasant evening.